Hands where I can see them! The officer's voice sliced through the morning calm like glass breaking. 5 seconds to show ID or we drag you out. His hand hovered over his holster. Every sound in the diner died. Forks froze midair. Conversations vanished. And at the center of that silence sat a black man in a faded hoodie, eyes calm, body still. He didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Just waited. Across the counter, Zariah Cole stepped forward. 25, brown skin glowing under the neon light. A waitress apron tied neat, eyes steady enough to stop a storm. "He's a customer," she said. "Unless drinking coffee's a crime now, you're the one out of line." The air tightened. No one moved. That's how moments like this begin. Not with punches or fire, but with words sharpened by years of quiet judgment. What no one in that diner knew was that the man in the hoodie wasn't just anyone. His name was Langston Drake, billionaire tech CEO, a man who'd built an empire and changed the digital world. But today, he wasn't a headline. He was just a father whose daughter was fighting for her life in a hospital 2 hours away. He'd come here to breathe, to disappear, to be human again. When the officer's voice rose, Langston finally spoke, calm and deep. Let her speak. And just like that, everything shifted. This is Hidden Worth. Stories that remind us what's buried beneath bias and bravery. Zariah Cole didn't grow up with privilege. Her world was a one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat, where the hum of dryers was her lullaby. Her mother, Denise, worked double shifts as a nurse, her hands always tired but her spirit unbreakable. "You're my sunlight, baby," she'd whisper before collapsing into sleep. Zariah's father disappeared before she turned 6, but her mother filled the silence with strength, teaching her that dignity isn't given, it's chosen. By 16, Zariah had already learned how the world measured her. Teachers praised her for being well-spoken with surprise. Store clerks watched her hands too closely. Strangers reached for her hair like it was public property. She smiled through it, not because it didn't sting, but because she refused to let them see her crack. Her dream was simple: open a bakery. A small corner shop that smelled like sugar and safety. But dreams cost, and money didn't come easy. So she waited tables, saved every dollar, and scribbled recipes in a leather notebook between her prayer journal and an old photo of her and her mom. 2 women in aprons, still untouched by the world's weight. That morning, when the officers stormed in, Zariah didn't hesitate. She'd been walking through storms her whole life. That one was just louder. Langston Drake was nothing like the world imagined him. No designer suit, no polished smile, just a man in a hoodie, eyes heavy with sleepless worry. His daughter Maya had gone into emergency surgery at dawn. He'd left the boardrooms and cameras behind, driving until he found a diner where no one knew his name. Because when you're a black man, even with billions, people still see color before character. And as he sat there, clutching a plastic takeout bag and a heart full of fear, he wasn't a CEO. He was a dad. When Zariah stood up for him, she didn't know who he was. She didn't care. She saw wrong, and she chose to stand in between. And for Langston, who'd spent a lifetime hiding behind power, that moment was more valuable than any fortune. By dawn the next day, the price of her courage arrived. A note taped to her apartment door. Careful. Inside was a diner receipt, circled in black ink. Western Creek wasn't loud about its hate. It whispered it with skipped smiles and closed doors. By noon, her regulars avoided her section. Her manager pulled her aside. "People talk, Z. This ain't just coffee anymore. Make a statement. Say it got blown out of proportion." "I'm not taking it back," she said. "Then don't cry when your shifts disappear." That night, her landlord called. "You've got 30 days, he said. When she asked why, he sighed. "You know why." But what Zariah didn't know was that across the internet, she'd already become a symbol. A college kid had recorded her standoff on his phone, a 58-second video titled, "This Waitress Stood Up to Cops for a Man Nobody Else Would." Overnight, it hit 1 million views. Hashtags exploded. What stand with Zariah? Protect black women. Coffee and courage. And while the world celebrated her bravery, Zariah was just trying to survive another shift, her hands smelling of dish soap and burnt toast. Miles away, in a hospital suite overlooking the Charlotte skyline, Langston Drake watched that same video. His daughter was safe. His empire was steady. But his mind kept returning to that diner and the woman who refused to back down. He called his assistant. "Find everything about her," he said, quietly. "She doesn't know what she did for me." The next morning, Western Creek buzzed with rumors. Outsiders in suits filled the diner. Then a delivery van arrived. A brand new espresso machine, paid in full, no return address. And minutes later, a woman in black handed Zariah an envelope. "From Mr. Drake," she said, then left. When Langston himself walked through the door that afternoon, the diner went still again. No bodyguards, no press, just him. He smiled softly. "You treated me like a man when everyone else saw a target," he said. He placed a small silver key on the counter. "That's the deed to this place. It's yours now." Zariah's lips trembled. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you reminded me that money can build things, but people like you keep the world from falling apart." When he left, Zariah opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $75,000, ownership papers for the diner, and a 1-year lease to a commercial kitchen nearby. Her bakery dream, finally within reach. At the bottom of the letter, handwritten, "For what you've carried and what you're about to create." Days later, her new equipment arrived under the banner Drake Foundation. In the last box sat a single brown-wrapped package. Inside, a flour-dusted apron embroidered in pale blue thread, Sunlight and Spice, her bakery name, the one she'd only ever written in her journal. A note read, "You told the truth when it cost you. Now let that truth feed others." Zariah cried, not because of the money, but because she'd been seen. Weeks passed. The same people who'd once whispered behind her back now lined up for pie and forgiveness. Her old teacher came in first, the one who told her to speak less, smile more. She ordered a slice and said softly, "I was wrong." Zariah nodded. "What kind of pie?" "Whichever one you made." Even the kids who'd once mocked her showed up to sweep the sidewalk. The town began to change, not with speeches, but with small, humble steps. And one afternoon, the diner door opened and Officer Carla Mendez walked in. No uniform, no armor, just a quiet woman with tired eyes. "Black coffee," she said. They stood in silence until Carla finally whispered, "I wasn't the one who said the words, but I stood there and let them be said." "I'm sorry," Zariah studied her. "I didn't need an apology," she said. "I needed someone to act." "I know," Carla murmured. "That's why I'm here." Zariah slid a biscuit toward her. "Talking's easier with food." Carla smiled faintly. "Thank you." And maybe that was how real change began, not with anger, but with two people sharing silence over a cup of coffee. Months later, Sunlight and Spice opened its doors. The air smelled of cinnamon and honey. Kids laughed near the frosting counter. Strangers smiled like neighbors. No titles, no uniforms, just people being human again. That morning, Langston and his daughter came by quietly. Maya was healthy, her laughter bright as sunlight. Zariah served them lemon muffins on the house. No cameras, no applause, just gratitude. And as she glanced at the photo of her and her mom on the wall, two women in aprons, covered in powdered sugar and dreams, she realized something simple and true. Kindness means the most when it's given without expecting anything back. Because we don't always choose the battles we face, but we do choose how we show up. And sometimes showing up, speaking when it costs you, is what gives the world permission to change. So if this story touched you, don't just scroll away. Remember Zariah's lesson. Remember Langston's silence. Remember that courage doesn't always roar. It sometimes stands quietly behind a counter and says, "He's a customer." Because one act of truth, one voice of courage, can rewrite the story for everyone who comes after.